Hi. So, my father, 50 male, recently filed for divorce from my stepmother, 44 female, and she and all her friends are blaming me for it. But I don't think it's my fault. It's not surprising though, since Sharon, that's what I'll call my stepmom, and I have never had a good relationship. I wouldn't say that it's been bad, but honestly, we just never really connected or got along well. I would say that she is really not the kind of person whom I would select for my dad because she seems kind of shallow and pretentious. She got married to my father when I was 16, and they had been together for about 3 years before they got married. When they were dating, she was nice to me, but I could tell that it was all for show because she obviously had to get along with the daughter of the man that she was seeing. I could see right through her, but my dad seemed to be happy with her, so I never said anything about it. Besides, it's not like she had screwed up colossally or something, so I had no reason to ruin his happiness just because I didn't like her whole vibe. That would be really petty, but now I kind of wish that I had said something. Anyway, a year before their marriage, Sharon started living with us, and she was kind of annoying to be around because she was always just trying to be overbearing and controlling. She was changing everything around the house and trying to make it look better. But honestly, all that she was doing was changing things that my mother had picked out for the house, and she knew it because my mother had great taste, and my dad would occasionally brag about it to guests. For context, my mother passed away in a car crash when I was 7 years old, and everybody missed her because she was a wonderful human being. Whenever guests would come over, people would occasionally bring her up and reminisce about the times we had with her. And my dad and I also look back on those memories very fondly. It was not something that happened all the time, but whenever it did happen, my dad and I would always tear up because our time with her had been cut short and it still hurt. Sharon was probably jealous of that and couldn't stand it. So that's why she started changing everything, and slowly but surely she started erasing any and every trace of my mother from the house. It started with something really small, like the decorations, the wallpaper that my mother had picked out. But then she moved on to bigger things. She made my dad put all her clothes in the attic to make space for her wardrobe, which I can still understand. But then she said that she was not comfortable with having my mother's photos around the house and had all her photographs removed, even the family photos that we had together. I thought it was a bit extreme and put up a good fight against it, but my dad said that this was our new family now, and my mother would have wanted to make everyone feel as happy and comfortable as they can be. So I conceded and didn't bring it up again, but I knew that Sharon was trying to replace my mom. I could understand that she was kind of frightened because of my mother, and you can't exactly compete with a dead person, but I could never understand why she had to be so insecure. I mean, my mother was gone and she had my dad all to herself, just the way she wanted it. People only talked about her because she had been young when she passed away, and of course, that had been a huge shock to all of us, so it was not easy for us to move on, especially for the people closest to her, her family. So it was natural for us to occasionally talk about her and keep her alive in our memories. That was the least that we could do. We didn't want to forget her, and if she had any empathy at all, she would respect that, and instead of trying to replace her, she would just accept that she was not my mother and was never going to be. She was her own person, and that's just how it was. She could look at it as a positive thing as well. But she just had to feel threatened and make it into a competition. So she started trying to act like my mother, and her definition of being a mother meant that she had to control every aspect of my life. I believe that she felt that I would find it endearing, but I honestly just found it annoying. The way that she was constantly trying to tell me what to do. She would give me unsolicited advice literally all the time, be it about boys or clothes or even my education. I mean, she didn't even have a college degree herself, but sure, I was going to take advice from her. And she didn't even do it in a nice way. She was always really condescending about it and treated me like a 5-year-old who knew nothing about the world, even though I was literally 16 at the time. And yeah, maybe 16 is not really that old, but I'm sure that nobody thinks it's appropriate to talk down to a 16-year-old. It was really unnecessary for her to act like I was a total idiot or something. She would talk to me like I didn't understand anything and was not capable of making my own decisions. It was just really irritating, and I don't know exactly how to explain it to you guys, but imagine being spoken to like you are a child, but it doesn't come from a place of concern or love. It just comes from a place of wanting to make you feel inferior. There was no real affection. She would only talk to me like that because she felt like I was stupid or something. She would also keep insisting that she was my second mother, and honestly, that was more creepy than cute. I didn't like it one bit, and after a couple of months, I was forced to tell her to just cut it out because she was not my mother, and she couldn't just squeeze herself into the role because she didn't need to. I didn't want her to. I did have a mother of my own, and I loved her, and I always will, even though she's gone now. I didn't ask for a replacement, and it was really weird for her to even try so hard. So she cut it out and stopped trying so hard because it was getting on my nerves. But what I didn't expect was that she would find other ways to annoy me. She would still talk to me like I was an infant and would be condescending, but at least now she wasn't trying to give me advice or act like my mother. And I knew that it was all for show anyway, so it didn't really affect me. What did annoy me was the fact that she would get my dad involved in things that he had no business being a part of, just because she wanted to feel like she had control over me. After I had told her to back off for a while, she started getting my dad to talk to me about her concerns. Just a little example. When I was 17, I was having a little trouble with a girl at school who was being nasty to me for no reason. I had been talking about it to my friends on my phone, and I guess Sharon snooped through it and found out about it, but she couldn't talk to me about it because I had told her to back down. So she sent my dad to talk to me about it, and I knew it was him talking. But all I could hear were Sharon's words coming out of his mouth. And then, when I was about to apply for colleges, she started talking about how she had expected me to choose a better college at a party that my dad had thrown for me to celebrate the college that I did get accepted into and I was going to attend. I mean, she was just the single most annoying person I had to deal with, and I was glad to be rid of her when I finally moved out. I think it's pretty obvious that after I moved out for college, I only came back home for the holidays because I didn't want to have to deal with her. Even when I would come home occasionally, she would still behave the same way with me, even though I was a literal full-grown adult woman. And while I wouldn't say that we had a really bad relationship, it was certainly not great. And I don't know about her, but I never liked her. Recently, however, she invited me to my father's 50th birthday party that she was throwing for him. She told me that it was going to be a huge party and she had invited all his friends and most of our family. She had even gone out of her way to invite my maternal grandparents, and I thought that was a mature move for her because she always hated the fact that my dad had continued to keep in touch with his ex-in-laws. She was having the party at one of my dad's favorite restaurants, and it was going to be pretty big. But for some reason, she told me that she wanted to talk to me in person a couple of days before the party. I was skeptical about it because I couldn't imagine me and her having anything to talk about because we hadn't exactly been in touch for the past couple of years. But I still agreed because it seemed important. So 3 days ago, I decided to meet her at a coffee shop near my house. We met and she was just as annoying as usual, acting like I was a toddler. She was meeting and it earned us several weird looks from other people as well. So you guys can probably tell by now that her behavior is not something that I made up in my head because I wanted a reason to hate her. And she was actually just really annoying to talk to and behaved in a very weird and insulting way. Anyway, once we sat, after some small talk, she told me that she wanted to discuss the party with me. I thought she was going to tell me that you needed my help with the arrangements or even the budget, but instead, She told me that she wanted to tell me that I was not allowed to bring my husband to the birthday party because of something so awful and dehumanizing that I can't even believe she said it right to my face and expected me to be okay with it. So just to be clear, I have been married to my husband, Jason, 24, male, for 2 years. But we have been together ever since ninth grade. And yeah, he's my high school sweetheart. Everybody knew that we were going to get married as soon as we graduated, and we did. He's my soulmate, and I love him more than anybody alive. And I can say the same for him. Jason has also had epilepsy since he was a child, and even though he does take medicines for it, he still gets fits occasionally. I'm totally cool with it, and I expect that other people should also be okay with that, because it's something beyond his control, and it's really insensitive and disrespectful to use that against him in any context. So when Sharon told me that I was not allowed to bring him as a +1 to the party because she was afraid that he might have a fit among all those people, I had no idea what to say to her. It was not only disrespectful, but it was straight up ableism, and it took all the strength I had to not throw my coffee onto her face and walk out. Instead, I decided to just walk off without bothering or even dignify that with a response. I didn't even reply to her and walked out of the coffee shop, got into my car, and drove back home. I declined the invitation as soon as I was back home and blocked Sharon immediately. I was seething and trying my best to control my temper, but I just couldn't. And I ended up crying on the couch because I was just so angry. First off, this was my father and his birthday party, and even though she was organizing it, it didn't give her the right to say something so humiliating and insensitive to me, especially about the one person that I love the most just as much as my dad. And I know for a fact that she knew that this was going to hurt me because I don't think anybody in my position would have taken it kindly. And more importantly, it's not like she didn't know how much I love Jason. He's been in my life ever since I was 13, and she knows very well that I hate it when people try to make it seem like Jason is any less capable or worthy of love and respect than other people just because of his condition. If anything, he is far better than us because he's so strong and deals with something that most people look down upon. Sharon has always known about my feelings on this, and yet she didn't think it was inappropriate and insulting to demand that I don't bring him to the party with me. He's my husband. Of course, we are a package deal now, especially since this is a family event. And more importantly, it's my dad's birthday. I don't think she has the right to tell me who I'm allowed to bring and not. Anyway, when I was crying on the couch, I was trying to be quiet because I didn't want to talk to Jason about this, but he heard me crying and he rushed to my side to comfort me, and I just couldn't keep it in. I told him what Sharon had said, and I also said that it was becoming really difficult for me to keep in touch with my father because just like the two of us, they were also a package deal because they were husband and wife. I didn't want to jeopardize their relationship, but at the same time, I just couldn't stand Sharon anymore. I had already considerably reduced my visits to my dad's house because of her, but right now she was putting me in a position where I might have to cut them off entirely. I had already spoken to my father about the way that Sharon used to infantilize me and disrespect me constantly growing up. But he was convinced that it came from a place of love and affection, and she was just concerned about me, which is why she treated me that way. Plus, I was really just a kid because I was in my teens, and my dad didn't fully understand the extent to which Sharon would push me with her strange behavior. At the end of the day, she was just being annoying and it wasn't hurting me, so he let it slide. But this was something else. Jason comforted me, and after I had stopped crying, he told me that he was used to people saying things like that about him, and it didn't really hurt him anymore, which is really sad, and not how things should be. But he also told me that I needed to talk to my father because this was a lot more serious than before, and even though he didn't find it hurtful, he could tell that I was really upset, and it was about time that I confronted my dad about it once and for all. So after talking to him, I felt slightly better and I decided to talk to my dad about it. I had already declined the online invitation so Sharon would know that she screwed up. But that was not enough. She had taken things too far and she needed to be taken down a peg. So I called my father up that evening and I told him what his wife had said to me. I told him that I couldn't, in good conscience, attend his birthday party anymore or even stay in touch with them because what Sharon had said had been deeply humiliating for both of us and I couldn't accept that kind of behavior anymore. I also mentioned that I knew he loved her, which is why he had always believed that she treated me like an infant because she was desperate to have a good relationship with me. But the truth was she only treated me like that because she was desperate to establish how dominant she was. And when she couldn't do that, she started finding other ways to get back at me. And this was just one of them. There was a lot of pent-up frustration that I had to let go of, and I chose that moment to do it. My dad heard me out patiently, and after I was done venting, he told me that he would see what he could do about this. He apologized to me and said that he was really sorry about what Sharon had said about Jason. That was really unforgivable, and he could totally understand where I was coming from. He told me that he also loved Jason like his own son, and he wouldn't even want to party without him. He told me that he would talk to Sharon and make sure that she apologized to me as soon as possible. That was all that we talked about, and after that, we hung up. I felt better after getting all of that out of my system, and Jason and I tried not to think about it for the rest of the day. We didn't hear from either Sharon or my dad for the next 2 days, but this morning I received word from my aunt that apparently my father had filed for divorce. It was shocking because I definitely hadn't seen that coming, and my aunt was texting me to ask if I knew anything about it. But I didn't even know that he was getting divorced. So I immediately decided to call my father up and ask him about this because I absolutely had to get to the bottom of what was happening. When I called him, he told me that he was about to reach out to me. And the first thing that he told me was that he had filed for divorce from Sharon and was living separately right now. He said that he was living in a hotel a little distance away from his house and asked me to visit so he could explain everything to me. So I headed over there as soon as I could, abandoning all my work, and when I got to his room, the first thing that he did was hug me and apologize for everything that he had put me through, because he was being selfish and putting his own happiness above mine. He said that he was aware of how selfish he had been so far, and had actually been refusing to believe that maybe Sharon was not a good fit for our family. He said that he had noticed how insecure and jealous she was of my mother, a person who didn't even exist in this world anymore. He also noticed Sharon's constant attempts to put me down and make me feel bad about myself. He knew that she was controlling and potential threat, but he was willing to let all of that go just because she made him happy when they were on their own and didn't think about anything else. He admitted that he had been selfish and was trying really hard to make himself believe that she was a good person. But they had been having a lot of problems in the past couple of years, and she had become increasingly overbearing and suspicious. She was constantly accusing him of still being hung up on my mother and would bring that up in every fight they had. She would constantly insult my mom and me, and he tried really hard to explain to her that he was in love with her, but she just didn't buy it and constantly compared herself with my mom. It was just getting insane and difficult. The thing that she said about Jason was pretty much the last straw. They had already been having marital problems, and when my father confronted her about what she said that she didn't even feel guilty about it because she was trying to make everything perfect for him, and he should apparently have been grateful to her. When he tried to explain to her that he actually wanted Jason at the party regardless of his condition, she got mad at him and started playing the victim. It was the usual, saying that she was the bad guy because she had tried to do something nice for him. He tried to tell her that this wasn't nice because it was humiliating and insulting for me and my husband, but she was just not ready to hear it and continued to play the victim even though she wasn't one. So my dad finally lost it and told her that she could continue to act like she was the one who was suffering here, but he was out because he couldn't do this anymore. He left the house in a huff and moved to the hotel that evening itself. He spoke to his lawyer and had him draw up the divorce papers as soon as he could. The only reason he didn't say anything to me for those 2 days was because he was ashamed and embarrassed and felt like he had failed me as a father. It was quite an emotionally charged conversation, and one that we desperately needed to have for a really long time. Once all of it was out in the open, we decided that we were going to give each other a chance to fix this relationship. Because in spite of everything, I love my father and I didn't want to lose him. He told me that he had announced that he had filed for divorce in the family group, one of which I was not a part of because they send a lot of messages there and I really have better energy in person. So I was the last to know, since he had to call me up and tell me after he sent the message. He had also sent the same message to Sharon and was waiting for her to respond to it. But either way, it didn't matter because it was done now and he was not going to cancel the proceedings at any cost. So even if she didn't respond to the message, she would have to respond to it legally. After talking to my dad, I came back home and I felt relieved. He was finally going to be done with Sharon, but unfortunately it seemed like Sharon isn't done with me. She called me from a different number up a couple of hours ago, and boy, she really let it out. She started screaming at me as soon as I answered the call and accused me of a gazillion things, ruining her marriage and being the worst one. She claimed that I apparently had always had it in for her because I worshipped my mother and I couldn't stand the fact that somebody else was taking her place. For the record, my dad had dated other women after my mother's passing and I had never had a problem with any of them, so that was definitely not true. Sharon also claimed that the only reason she had said that I wasn't allowed to bring Jason to the party first was because she wanted to save us all the embarrassment, and she only had good intentions. But I had to distort it into something evil because I hated her for no reason. She was drunk and having a hard time making sense. I actually felt pity for her, and I've been feeling really weird about it ever since that phone call. So AITA for telling my dad that his wife had told me that I wasn't allowed to bring my husband to his 50th birthday party because of my husband's epilepsy? Update 1. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my post, and I don't even know why I was questioning myself or beating myself about what happened. Sharon brought this onto herself, and there is no way that she can pretend otherwise. I guess I was just feeling bad for her because she was drunk and seemed like she was really in a lot of emotional turmoil, but honestly, this is not my fault. I mean, she told me that I couldn't bring my epileptic husband to a party because she was embarrassed by what could have happened if he had a fit there. What did she even think was going to happen? I was just going to agree and be like, yeah, my husband shouldn't come with me to my dad's birthday party because of his condition. You're right, Sharon. I mean, it's ridiculous to even think about right now. I guess I'm just a really sensitive person, which is why I felt bad for her. But now I know that there is no reason for me to feel sorry about anything that happened, especially given the fact that none of this is my fault. Both my dad and Jason think that I did the right thing by telling my father, because what she said to me was really insulting, and she's been acting like this since I was 13. She's had plenty of chances to fix her behavior and watch herself, but if she thinks that the way that she behaves is normal, then that's on her. Besides, how on earth was I supposed to know that she was having problems with my dad anyway? It's not like my dad discusses these things with me, and she and I are not exactly friends, so there is no way I could have known, and I definitely didn't do any of this on purpose. She's been acting like a grade psycho for years now, and she's finally getting called out about it, and it's about time that it happened. Update 2. Hey, so my dad called me today to tell me that he is still having the birthday party. I mean, it only makes sense because Sharon used his card to pay for everything, so he could still have the party and not invite her. So the party is still happening, and Jason and I are going to be attending it since it's in 3 days. We have already started discussing therapy for the two of us, as we really want to fix our relationship, and this is not something that we think we can fix on our own. So we need the help of a professional. Jason also thinks that this is a great idea, and I'm really excited, to be honest. My dad and I were close before, and it feels like an old friend is coming home. That's pretty much the best way I can describe it. Still no word from Sharon regarding the divorce and everything, but that's not surprising. She's probably pretty insulted, and she really should feel that way. Update 3. So my dad had the party today, and I thought it was going to be weird given the circumstances, but it actually wasn't. It was pretty fun, and all of us had a gala time there. All his friends and a lot of our family members were present there, and nobody even talked about Sharon, just what was needed. Jason and I had the time of our lives. We got drunk and danced till our feet hurt. And this is probably the first time in a really long time that I remember having this much fun with my father. I felt like a little girl again when we turned on the music and danced in our living room. It was great. And I just wish we could have more days like this. Update 4. Okay, so Sharon finally responded to the divorce petition and she's not contesting it. But it is pretty surprising. But then again, it was very unlikely that she would try to fight it. She is, however, demanding a huge sum as alimony, and quite frankly, I don't think she deserves it. But whatever, that's between their lawyers. The divorce proceedings and the settlement negotiations are supposed to begin in a couple of days, and I just honestly hope that it doesn't get nasty. On the bright side, my dad and I have started therapy, and it's going well. We have decided that we are going to try and have lunch or dinner together at least once every week and really rebuild our relationship. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.